Hey everyone, welcome to the best Thanksgiving stuffing recipe video that you're ever going to watch. You're going to want to bookmark this page, so go ahead and like, subscribe to the channel, start typing up your comment now because this is the only stuffing recipe video that you're ever going to have to watch. What you see here is all the ingredients that you need. We've got a stick of butter right here, so 8 tablespoons of butter, a regular stick. We are going to use Kerrygold, it's Irish butter. And the thing you need to remember is it comes in blocks that are 2 sticks worth. So cut it in half, throw it in the pan, and we're going to heat this up. We're going to start melting the butter. While the butter melts, onion and celery. That's what we're going to get started. We're going to quote unquote sweat the onions and celery. The other ingredients, before we get started, 1 roll of Jimmy Dean breakfast sausage. Not links or anything, just plain old sausage in the tube. We're going to add this once the celery and onion get started. Can of chicken broth. We don't use this until the end, but you got to make sure you got it. And salt and pepper. If you've ever cooked anything that's ever tasted good in your life, salt and pepper were an ingredient on that list. And then a loaf of bread. If you live somewhere in the country where they sell stuffing bread, which is a loaf of bread rectangle, but it's not sliced, get stuffing bread. Right out here in California, they don't sell stuffing bread. So what I do, get a loaf of bread the night before, open it up, and just leave it open the night overnight. It won't get stale, but it will get a little bit firmer. You'll see why we want that when we get to the bread part of the recipe. Butter's starting to melt. One other key ingredient, it doesn't go into the stuffing, but you should have a drink with you. It's Thanksgiving time, holidays are approaching, it's nighttime, we're cooking. Have a drink and enjoy yourself while you're doing this. All right, so get your knife. You want 1 medium onion. If you have a large one, you're only gonna need half. You wanna make sure, I did a dry run the other day, so I know that I only needed half of the onion in the previous dry run of the recipe, so I know that this half will be good. Just gonna chop it up, a couple long slices, and then go across. Make sure not to cut your fingers off, no fingertips. My knife work is not what it used to be when I was a younger man and working in the kitchens all the time, but you'll get the idea here. There we go. And just get that right into the pan. Toss it in. It's a really easy recipe because a lot of the details don't matter. It's the simplicity of the ingredients all coming together that really makes it work. So once we got our onion chopped, we're going to do the celery next. If you don't trust yourself with a knife, just go slow. You know, I've got horrible knife technique. Look what I'm doing here. This is not how you're supposed to cut an onion, but it works. It gets it cut. The celery, make sure to cut it long ways once. You don't want enormous pieces of celery. And I've got 3 stalks here. That may be more than I need. I'm gonna put 1 in at a time and kind of eyeball what the pan looks like to get an idea of if it's enough. I know I need at least 2. Actually, I got 4 stalks here. The other key ingredient to making stuffing, you have to make sure you're wearing a good sweater. A festive Thanksgiving fall sweater. Got to have the right earth tone colors. You know, that's kind of the secret ingredient to a good stuffing. Any sort of Thanksgiving recipe tastes better if it's made with stuffing. I'm sorry, with a good sweater on. All right, so the other key ingredient is a wooden spoon. You only cook with a wooden spoon. If you've got plastic utensils or something, just go ahead and order a wooden spoon from Amazon or go down to your local store and get a wooden spoon because that'll help the flavor. All right, so you're not going to be able to really zoom in close on this. I'm just going to take my phone out, my second phone here, and get a quick overhead shot of what it looks like with all of the melted butter and onions. So these are going to cook for a little bit. I've got it on high. All right, so now you can see we've got melted butter, onions, and celery. The key is to soften them enough, but not to make them into mush. You don't, when you're taking into a bite of stuffing, you want to feel all of the texture. You don't want to taste like raw celery. You don't want a big crunch like you're taking a bite of raw celery. But you also want a little bit of mouthfeel. You want to feel some texture when you bite into it. You're going to have a lot of softness from the bread and from the sausage. So you don't need, you want to find that good happy place in between raw celery and completely mush celery. All right, so once these get real hot, we're gonna turn it down. We want it about a medium. We really don't want the butter boiling. We definitely don't want the butter burning. We just want everything good and hot and melty. And then we just squeeze the sausage in. Squeeze it in, squeeze it in. Eventually, it's gonna come out in a big tube. Ta-da! Sausage tube. Now, Jimmy Dean's sausage has 3 different flavors that you can that you might find at your store. We're using regular, which is fine. I would recommend regular. I would recommend regular for your first time making the recipe because I want you to taste it. What we're going to do now, just mash it up, break it up with the wooden spoon. Again, the reason you need a wooden spoon. I would recommend regular because if you went with one of the other 2 flavors, which I'll get to in a second, they may distract you a bit from, again, the flavors and simplicity of this recipe and what makes it great. The other flavors are spicy. There's a hot sausage variety. And there's also a sage flavor. The sage is, obviously, it's more herbs, and it can go well with the Thanksgiving vibe and theme because you may have a lot of herbs and whatever in the rest of your Thanksgiving cooking. But I'm not a fan of it. So 99% of the time I go with regular. And the other 1% of the time is when I buy something by mistake. So go with regular, especially for your first time. If you like spicy food, if you want to just try a little different, a little variety, a hot stuffing to go with your turkey, hey, who am I to judge, right? Who am I to judge? But now we're just going to cook this, brown it, so to speak. Keep breaking it up because you're going to want it to be in little pieces. So while this is doing, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the sort of the overview of this recipe. We've got this period here where we're in the pan. And then eventually we're going to get it in the oven and bake it. And that's where the bread and the chicken stock come in. And you've got a couple options for baking your stuffing. A lot of traditionalists will tell you that you bake your stuffing inside the turkey, in the cavity of the turkey when the turkey's cooking. And that's fine. One caveat to that is your stuffing will taste like it was cooked inside of a turkey. It will be very heavily turkey flavored. And for me, I'm already going to have turkey on my plate. So I don't need the stuffing to taste more like turkey than it already may. So I like to cook it outside of the turkey. But that's, again, up to you. If you're the kind of person that likes to stuff their turkey and cook the stuffing in the turkey, this recipe works for that. That's what you'll do when we get to the baking portion. Another classic way to do it would be to bake it in a casserole dish. Throw it in the oven, 350 degrees for somewhere between 20 and 45 minutes, depending on how dry or how moist you like it. And that's fine too, and I do that a lot. I oftentimes do that a lot because I'll often make a double batch of stuffing for Thanksgiving. So like I'll make the stuffing in my preferred method, which I'm going to mention in a second. And then I'll also make a casserole batch as well. So I'm just going to take a video here. Just to give us a good idea, this is what it looks like here. All browned, almost all brown. There's a little bit of raw in there. And you don't have to be super particular about it because it's gonna bake, right? So you don't want enormous raw chunks of sausage. I can guarantee we don't want that. But you don't need to make sure that everything is totally cooked through. If you see like splashes of pink when we're done and going into the oven, that's fine. Don't worry about that. In fact, that reminds me, I'm going to preheat the oven right now. Oh, wrong button. Bake. 350. Actually, we're going to go 375. All right, so we're preheating the oven. These are the 3 cows on the stove here. These cows were stolen from a bar in the north end of Boston about 20 years ago. I still have them. 3 cows. Anyway, this is the sausage, celery, onion, and butter. And what we haven't done yet is put in the salt and put in the pepper. We could have done that earlier, but as long as we do it now, we definitely want to do it before we get into the bread section of the recipe. Now, because you can see it's already pretty full, but what we're going to start doing now is adding the bread, and it's really sizzling, so we're actually going to go all the way down to low. Big sip. All right. Now, the good stuff is ready to go. So now, the way that I have learned a long time ago to bake the stuffing in muffin tins, cupcakes, muffins, etc. The reason you do this, everyone will get, it turns out, instead of having a casserole dish that you have to scoop out, each muffin turns out to be a perfect portion to distribute to everyone. So this makes 12 servings of the stuffing. Now we're probably gonna have more recipe than 12 servings. So what you do is, before you bake it, just freeze it. It freezes really well. Throw it in a container, throw it in the freezer. Whatever doesn't fit in the muffin pan, take it out the next day, let it thaw, put it in the muffin pan, and bake it, no problem. So when you've got your leftover turkey, you can have fresh leftover stuffing batch. So here's what we're gonna do with the bread. You take your bread, if you've got stuffing bread, like I said, it's not sliced, grab off a chunk about this big. This is 3 slices plus the empties. So what you can do, take a slice, rip it up, kind of toss it up, make it into a ball, rip it up a little bit, toss it in, rip it up a little bit, toss it in, rip it up, squeeze it into your hands, toss it in, and then we're just going to start stirring it into the pan with our wooden spoon, right? And now you can see that's very little. So we are never going to do 1 slice at a time. I did that as like an illustration of like what not to do, basically. We're going to take big globs of the bread. Give a little to my dog. and rip off these big pieces and be really messy with it. You don't want uniform pieces. You want basically bread snowflakes. Every one a little bit different. You're just gonna kind of, some of them you make into a ball and toss them in. Some of them you kind of rip into shreds and toss it in. You can have fun with it, almost like it's clay or Play-Doh. Kind of mush it up, break it up. Once it's in the pan, you keep going with that with the spoon. And you want that butter and sausage and onion and all the liquid. You'll notice we definitely didn't drain any liquid out, right? You want to start getting this pan full of bread. It's going to look a lot different when I'm done, but this is what it looks like right now. And we're going to do that till we have the whole loaf of bread in the pan, believe it or not. One year, I thought, I'm not going to put the whole loaf of bread in. I think the recipe doesn't need that much bread. My wife was very disappointed with the way that the stuffing came out that year. So you have to use a whole loaf of bread. Very important. Otherwise, your critics will try this stuffing and say, you know what? This is not the best stuffing I've ever had in my life. I'm not going to bookmark this page and come back every single year. And that's not what you want. There's the beep. We're almost preheated. I set the timer by accident instead of preheating. So I'm going to go a little faster now. It's going to kind of rip it up, rip it up. Like I said, it's like Play-Doh. Have fun with it. Get out your frustrations, you know. Things are challenging right now. Emotions are running high. You know, maybe you're a loser. I don't know. Just rip it up, tear it up. Get it into the pan, all right? And now, as the butter and the other moisture gets absorbed by the bread, that's when we know we need to start adding the chicken stock. All right? So let's get the chicken stock. Any brand is fine. I'm not going to say what brand this is. Don't get low sodium, all right? I said earlier, salt and pepper is really important. Chicken stock tastes good when it has salt in it, okay? So, your doctor tells you to get low sodium or something, don't. Also, I'm not a doctor. So we're going to use a little at a time. We never want anything too watery because we don't want to be splashing around. A lot of manual mushing and mashing right here with the wooden spoon. You know, like I said, get your frustration out. If you want to mash someone, maybe a difficult coworker, maybe a relative who's been bothering you, you know, pretend that the stuffing is them. If that's how you want to go about your holidays. Or if you just haven't been to the gym in a while and you need a little exercise, you can do it that way. Whatever. Either way, you got to get the bread in and mushed up. So whatever gets you to do it. Or if you got a kid, you want to give a kid something to do. It's really hard to mess this up unless you whack it out of the pan. I got 2 dogs here waiting for me to whack it out of the pan. I don't think they're in the frame. But trust me, they're here. All right. So when you're done with this, I'm going to give you a little preview. If you're doing it right, your stuffing should almost be like a cement or like a concrete mixture. The onions, sausage, and celery, and the bread should all basically start. I'm going to show you again. See how different this looks from the last time? If things are starting to glue in together. The bread basically becomes the glue of this entire mixture. And it's almost, the reason why it works so well in the muffin tins is it almost becomes like a batter. Like a cake batter of delicious stuffing. All right? We're almost done with the loaf of bread. And then after the loaf of bread, I'm going to salt and pepper it one more time. Just want to make sure it's still filming. Okay. All right. We got about 6 more slices worth of bread to go. And the one thing you want to keep looking out for, you want it to be fairly uniform. If you see a lot of sausage in a spot that doesn't have bread with it, get some bread in there. If you see a lot of bread that doesn't have sausage, celery, or onion, start mixing. You want everything to be really, really, really thoroughly mixed. And I've made this recipe enough times to know that when you've got this amount of celery and this amount of onion, sausage, and bread, you should be able to get everything mixed and thoroughly blended together. This recipe's been in my family for generations. I didn't say that at the beginning. But this was how my grandparents made stuffing, my mother makes stuffing, my sisters make stuffing, my aunt makes stuffing. Stuffing is made this way in my family, and I am sharing that with you so that you can start your family tradition of stuffing. Because you've probably been having lackluster stuffing. Your stuffing that you've been eating all these years isn't as good as this stuffing. And so I'm helping you by providing you, there's the preheat, with the best stuffing that you can have. And so I'm not asking for any thanks, other than just like, comment, and subscribe. That's all. And leave a comment. When you leave a comment, what other great recipes do you want? What other things do you want to replace in your life with a better version, right? I'm letting you replace, or I'm helping you to replace the stuffing in your life with the best stuffing possible. What other things in your life need to be replaced with the best possible version? Ask yourself that, and then leave it in the comment. And if I can provide you with the best something else, then I will. All right. We've got all the bread. We have used all of the chicken stock. So at this point, there's nothing more to do than mix. All of the ingredients are in. Depending on what kind of shape you're in, your arm might be getting tired. You should be able to handle this. Pretty much, even people who haven't exercised, they don't arm wrestle or do any sort of upper body work, you should be able to handle this. I keep spinning it around because I'm trying to get like good angles on it, and I keep coming back to the same angle. So again, you don't want to see anything that looks like a piece of bread that you just ripped off. If you can recognize something as a shred of bread, you want to mush it into something. Other than that, I'm going to start flattening this out to see how it looks. We can evaluate it on the camera. I think we're there or pretty close. Yep. Let's bring this over. Perfect. This is the best stuffing you'll ever have as soon as we bake it. So like I was saying, I'm going to go ahead and turn this off now. Take your muffin tin. Take your wooden spoon, which is again is the official cooking utensil of this recipe, and just spoon it into each hole. You don't want it to be heaping. You also don't want it to be You know, it's not going to rise. There's no yeast or anything. It's not like bread. But you don't want it to be like overflowing either. You want it to be literally filled to the top and no higher. And then if you do get overflow, I usually just like fill, or I push all of the overflow into one hole, and that becomes my overflow hole. Because inevitably when you're taking the scoops out of the pan, you're gonna have a little too much, and then you just put that into your overflow hole until your overflow hole is full. And then you move on to another one. See, like there's a big scoop, too much. Move it into the overflow, like that. Move it into the overflow. Now this overflow is full. That one looks good. We got 5 more to go. Like this. Like this. There we go. Almost done. One more. Move a little into that one. All right. Now, here you are. 12 servings of stuffing. Now we're gonna bake this on 375 for about 20 minutes and take a look. What we're aiming for, we want crispy on the top and sort of spongy in the middle. So you get a good combination of crispy, crunchy from the baking on the top and not too crispy on the bottom. I'm just gonna throw this in a Pyrex glass container and throw it in the freezer. So everybody, you know, leftovers are a big part of Thanksgiving. This allows you to have, you know, when you're gonna have lots of leftover turkey, you might not have leftover stuffing, but this allows you to have stuffing basically in 20 minutes when you have leftovers. Because you're just gonna take this out of the freezer a little bit before you want to cook it. Just throw this in the freezer, let it thaw for a little while, and then once it's thawed, you throw it in the muffin tins and you've got hot, fresh stuffing to go with the rest of your leftovers in 20 to 30 minutes. All right, so the stuffing's gonna cook and we'll come back when that's done, like I said, in about 20, 30 minutes. I'm gonna set the timer now and we will be back. All right, so the timer just went off. It's been 20 minutes. Might not be done yet. This is the only time we're gonna use something other than the wooden spoon. We're gonna use a fork. So my glasses fog up when I take hot stuff out of the oven, so I'm gonna go without them and show you here. This is pretty much what you're looking at. Or looking for, I should say. Crispy on the top, and we're gonna check and see if we're spongy on the bottom. So I'm gonna get a little plate. Dog's here. Ideally, these will scoop out. Yep, see, it's not ready. These should scoop out like in one good. You can probably see it even at this distance. It's a little too mushy. So the top sort of looks right, but it doesn't feel right. So we're gonna go back in the oven for, if it's your first time, I'd say 5 minutes because you don't want to overdo it, but I'm gonna do it for 10. I'm gonna use my experience to say that it needs another 10 minutes. All right, so we are back one more time. Timer has gone off. I'm gonna burn my face with steam. In fact, I'm gonna grab a second glove here because we're getting real hot. Let's take a look. So we're even browner than we were before. We're definitely crunchy on the top. We're getting exactly what we're looking for there. isn't really what I was, yeah, we're still mushy. All right, still mushy there. All right, so it looks like another 10 minutes. All right, so hopefully third time's a charm here. Going in without the glasses this time so that we don't have any steam burns. All right, we're starting to get the formation of what I'm talking about here. It didn't come out all in one piece. Maybe if I let it cool, actually that's probably the key to this, right? After it comes out, you should really let it rest. Turn the oven off, let it rest. You're gonna let it cool down for another 15-20 minutes. And what you can see here, excuse me, puppy dog. What you can see, you've got good crust, all right? Good crust at the top, very crispy, with some gooey stuff in here. A good combination of things and flavors. So like I said, put this on the side. You can add your gravy to it, your turkey. Let it rest 15-20 minutes. You got 12 servings there. Stuff's in the freezer. If you need any questions, leave a comment. Feel free to, I will discuss this recipe up and down 24 hours a day. Ask your questions. If you want to substitute things, don't. Use the ingredients that I told you, and you will enjoy the greatest stuffing that you've ever had. Thank you very much, and enjoy the stuffing.